In this episode, I talk about how to get more people engaging with your creative work. Welcome to episode 173 of The Honest Entrepreneur Show, where I help creatives like you to master your marketing. My name's Tom Ross, and let's get into the show. Guys, I mentioned in an earlier episode, and we are batch filming right now, feeling kind of run down and really on the verge of getting sick. And it was a moment of realization, I think, for how much I've grown, because previously what I do would just be power through. I'd be like, right, I feel sick. I need to work extra hard to make up for like the lack of productivity compared to normal. I'd be working late. And then I would get really sick. I'd be like literally like in bed and like super sick and flu-y or whatever for like a week. And now I do the opposite. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep a little bit longer. I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to take my rest. I'm going to not try and do it all. I'm going to rein back. And it might sound really obvious to you, but I went the other way for a lot of years. And it's so refreshing. Like, and already it's like, I feel like I'm giving my body half a chance. Granted, I should be tucked up in bed, eating chicken soup right now, not hanging out with Marco, filming the show. But I'm getting there. And I encourage any of you who give yourself a hard time to actually listen to your body and chill when you need to.
This question is from Rashmi. How do I get better engagements on my posts? I do ask questions and reply on every comment on my posts, but most people don't bother to leave a comment.
Hey Rashmi, I love this question, and I just paused for a second to bring up your Instagram profile because I want to try and get tactical with my answer. I can see that you're really talented. Genuinely, you've got a great painting style, and for everyone's reference, especially those people listening to the show instead of watching, Rashmi does kind of still life watercolor. I think it's watercolor. Watercolor paintings, and it's of flowers, it's of some vegetables sometimes. I can see a shell, I can see a leaf, I can see a bird. These kind of nature inspired things, and more recently she's done a couple of landscapes, but majority is still life objects. And the issue in terms of you not getting engagement, I don't think is anything to do with your talent, because you're really, really talented. I think you need to look at two different things. So one of them, and this is the main thing I would focus on, is your subject matter, because I feel like you are always going to get limited response when you're doing something like a still life object. And I'm going to hold up an example here, right? If everyone can see, we've got like an orange flower, very nicely painted. I don't know what I'd comment on this, like unless I'm someone who's a friend of yours who's geeking out over your talent and just saying like, wow, love the detail on this piece or whatever. But in general, I wouldn't comment. I'm not going to be like, wow, that's a really nice orange flower. And I can see another one here. It's like, wow, that's a really nice shell. It is really nice and it's really well painted. But I feel like your subject matter is maybe where you're losing some of that potential for engagement. The stuff that really seems to blow up is emotively charged. And this can take all kinds of like forms. So there's a painter who just sprung to mind. He keeps doing stuff where it will be like pictures of famous musicians, and people go nuts for it because they've got a very emotive connection with that particular character. And I'm not saying you have to do celebrity portraits, but there's all kinds of stuff. And I think I talk a lot about this, right? You're trying to find your tribe who are passionate about something, who like to geek out over something, and you're trying to produce work that's going to trigger an emotional reaction in them. And I just think if you're doing leaves and flowers and things of that nature, you're going to struggle. So I would start trying to think outside the box in terms of like, how can I reallocate my skill, but within a subject matter that is really going to light people up. So is it that you can weave some of like the flower stuff around romance or love, and you can make it more about weddings and that kind of subject matter? And so all the old romantics out there would really resonate more than just a solitary flower. However you do it, you just need to figure out like, what are people going to go nuts for? What is shareable? Like, again, people generally won't share an orange flower, but they will share something that has a message that speaks to them, that really deeply kind of shakes their world or makes them feel something. That's what I think our job as creatives and artists ultimately has to be. It is not just a technical exercise. I talk about this a lot, same with hand lettering. It is not just the skill of your hand lettering that is going to map to your success. Often it's much more important what your message is. It's what the words are actually saying. Because if your words are generic, it doesn't matter if your letter forms are perfect and your X heights are spot on and like all that kind of technical part and aspect of your lettering, that comes secondary if you actually have something to say. I talked to Andy J. Pizza the other day. He came on my other podcast as a guest, and we used the example of musicians, right? You've got Mick Jagger, one of the most successful singers of all time, Freddie Mercury, and so on. Maybe Freddie Mercury is a bad example. You'll see why in a minute. Let's go with Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger, cool voice, very distinctive voice, but he's not technically the best singer in the world. There's a lot of session musicians and singers out there who are better. They have a better vocal range and so on. That's what I mean. Maybe you couldn't say the same for Freddie Mercury. Same with guitarists. They've got a look, they've got a feel, they've got a vibe, they've got a style of playing, and they put real feeling into their playing, and they write amazing songs. But for every Keith Richards, you've got 5 million session musicians who are quite possibly better guitarists. They're technically proficient. All they do is practice scales all day. They're like guitar playing robots. They can get every note perfect and play super quickly, but they don't have the same feeling. They don't get the audience to feel as much. They're not as original, right? And so that's what you need to do with your art, because simply being proficient with your painting strokes and being able to create beautiful art, I don't think is enough. I think you need to find your voice. I think you need to find something that's emotionally resonant, and that's when your engagement should lift up. And that's going to work much better than me giving you tactics for like, well, if you ask a slightly differently worded question in your Instagram description, or if you entice people to do it in your stories, all of that stuff is kind of not as substantial. It will help move the needle a little bit, all these little tactics I can give you, but I think start at the root and start by creating work that will elicit that more. Question of the day: who is your favorite singer? I'm intrigued. Let me know in the comments. Hey YouTube person, this is definitely not staged at all, but if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel for more goodness like this. And if you did like this video, I hope that you enjoyed these ones too.